I'm Alan Ross, the managing editor of APC Media, and my next guest is Ivan Paić. Tell us a little bit about who you are at KONČAR Group. What role do you play there?
Thanks a lot, Alan, for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this discussion. Today, I'm the board member of the KONČAR Group, one of the leading electrical engineering company in Southeast Europe.
Okay, we're going to get to that part, but you know that one of the things is being part of KONČAR Group. You've been around the industry a long time. Let's focus on the U.S. first, okay? What do you think the problems are in the United States? You know, we've gone like this. This was load, very little increase, and all of a sudden, boom, this is load. And we're running out of infrastructure. We've got to remake our grid. We've got all of these issues. Some transformers you can't get for 4 and 5 years, and similar things with other parts. You have a big transmission tower behind you. We are rebuilding our 765 grid, right? Well, there's a lot of different players. We don't have countries that decide under the Europe. We've got states that decide and some RTO. It's just, I hate to say it, but in the US, it's a mess. And right now, companies are looking at that, and then they're coming up with solutions. And I know KONČAR Group has some solutions. But what do you think the biggest problems that we face in the US are?
So, Alan, I believe you described it extremely well. But I would say in all this chaos, we see it as a quite big opportunity, actually, for business development. And when I, let's say, analyzed a little bit US market and what KONČAR Group should do to position ourselves on this very attractive and big market, basically I understand that main driver today for the increase of electrical consumption in US, but even outside of US, it's very similar situation, is everything that is happening around AI, data center, infrastructure, which are consuming a lot of energy. And then on top of this, you want to make still the impact on the environment. So CO2 reduction targets are asking us to go as much as possible in the electrification, which is putting a lot of pressure on the existing grid and complete electrical energy infrastructure that we have today, especially in US. What I understood is quite old, with limited capacity that can satisfy all those strong trends that are happening. And actually reinforcing the grid, in my opinion, is probably the biggest challenge that US is facing today. And this problem is becoming so obvious that today when you are discussing with the leading companies in terms of clouds and service providers, big hyperscalers and all those biggest companies that are today growing like crazy in terms of market valuation,
right?
You will get the answer that we need energy. We need electrical energy. And actually we need the fastest possible way to get it, because otherwise we cannot develop our companies and our business properly. So today, all of them are asking for any kind of solution that you can put behind the meter to provide enough electrical energy to run those data centers, but also other applications that are now electrified more and more.
You know, I think it's interesting because you also need intellectual energy. KONČAR Group is at its core is an engineering company, which I love because I'm an engineer. Engineers love to run and fix problems. We're like the Marines, right? If we see a problem, we run to it. If they see a war, they run to the action, because that's what we do. We solve problems. And talk a little bit about that, the culture and the history of KONČAR Group as an engineering, because you're going to go into manufacturing. We'll get to that later, but talk about the engineering that you've got as your, I would call it your pedigree.
Yes, you are absolutely right. Actually, we are extremely proud that out of 6,500 people that we have in our company, more than 2,500 are highly educated, mostly engineering profiles. And here we are talking about electrical engineers, civil engineers, mechanical engineers that understand the grid as such, but also understand all the components that you can find in different grid application and different infrastructure. I would say that we are also now quite well positioned in terms of knowledge and people resources in a way that we have a very strong engineering capability inside our electrical institute, in which we have more than 70 PhDs who are really focused with to develop the most advanced solutions that I believe today we need if we want to keep the pace on all of those trends that are becoming a little bit crazy, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, so having a lot of engineering knowledge and capacity is actually today one of the main value proposition we can propose to the market. And really we can start solving different kind of technical, but also more and more commercial problems that we have and that we need to solve on the technical level.
You have more PhDs than most universities have. I mean, that's a lot of good head knowledge. That's the intellectual energy that I'm talking about. We need. Our solutions in the U.S. are going to be collaborative. They're not going to be isolated to one person, one company, one solution. They have to be collaborative, just because of how we are regulated in the United States. With that, I know that you're going to be doing something in Houston, Texas, which is a city I visited. I've probably been there 100 times. It is the center of what we would consider to be the carbon energy market, right? And it is now trying to adjust itself to say, hey, we also need to be the center of the non-carbon energy market, or electrification, as you say it. But KONČAR Group is opening a plant there. You've been providing transformers into the United States through an agreement you have with somebody else. Now you're going to come in under your own brand to start producing transformers?
Yes, you are absolutely right. And actually, it's a quite big step, of course, for us as a company, but we are extremely looking forward to it. And one of the main challenges that we also face today is a very long lead time in this industry, but also the strong advantage you can provide is the speed of delivery, but also speed of building extra capacity. And this is why we decided to move in this kind of project together with a local strategic partner, which is a Sanmina corporation, which is a contract manufacturing type of company that can help us to build this facility much faster than if we decided to go it by ourselves and do it completely alone. Why we are doing that? Because today's supply chain in all those big applications for data centers, for renewables, for battery storages, is under capacity, that basically lead time today can be 2 or 3 years or even longer than that. And this is why we want to make something that is really designed to fit quite specific needs for these applications and provide much shorter lead time than it is today.
And when you say, will it come under the KONČAR Group brand, or will it be another brand?
So all the products will be branded as a KONČAR.
Okay.
And actually, this capacity, we can really consider it as a KONČAR factory, but strongly supported by our strategic partner, Sanmina, in which both companies can search for different customers. Okay. So the specially developed products are KONČAR IP property, and actually is really a result of long years of engineering capabilities and knowledge that we gathered inside our company, supported by very flexible, fast setup that Sanmina is providing in this strategic partnership.
And you expect it to be operational at the end of this year?
Yes, something like that. Of course, the capacity we will adapt according to the need and demand that is extremely strong. So we are already trying to see what should be the next steps in terms of increase of the capacity, but let's go step by step. I mean, it's still very demanding project.
Yeah, it's a demanding project, and it is a daily changing market in the United States. I thought we would run into the idea that we would get, it would settle down. It's actually gotten worse, because not only, and we're going to talk about this because I know one of your projects to focus on is green energy, but the transients and the problems that we're getting from the bidirectional nature of what's happening now, especially to transformers, is aging the existing infrastructure twice as fast today as it was aging it 10 years ago, because there are a lot of transients introduced when you have wind and solar coming up. So it's, transformers were built to step down, right? Generate at high level, step down, use the power. Well, now we're sending it everywhere. We've got people with rooftop solar in California selling it back to the utility company, who's got to take it, but it's also having to go from their DC market to an AC. It's just a lot of changes taking place in the marketplace we're going to talk about on green energy. With that said, a year, 2 years from now, what is the capacity of that Houston plant?
First of all, you very well described the so quick changes that you can encounter on the market. And actually, if you want to be one of the players to follow these trends, you need to be extremely flexible and fast. Okay.
Yeah, right.
And due to that reason, we are starting now with a capacity of around 1,000 pieces of transformers with average nominal power of, let's say, 5 to 6 MVA, which is really dedicated for specific application in data centers and battery storages, renewables. And that can be manufactured extremely fast. Of course, having in mind all the trends in which the need should increase much, much higher than it is even today, and demand should become much bigger than it is today, we are trying to build a model that can help us to be flexible on scaling up, but also in case something goes wrong, scaling down the available capacity relatively fast. And this is actually the biggest advantage we see today in this model in terms of speed to adapt to everything that is happening on the market and provide flexibility that can, of course, help us to build some sustainable and, at the end, of course, profitable business.
2 to 3 years ago, we all thought that 2 to 3 years from then, we would have solved the problem and lead times would have come down. It hasn't changed. It's gotten worse. The ability to scale up is going to be more important than the ability to scale down. I'll make a bet with you. We'll say that. You've got one of the other things that you want to focus on with Sanmina and the KONČAR Group, and I love is the idea that we're trying to change the generation mix in the United States. We're trying to decarbonize. We're trying to digitalize. We're trying to decentralize. And a lot of that comes down to making a major, which involves storage, making a major contribution to the green energy marketplace. Talk a little bit about KONČAR Group's commitment to that green energy marketplace.
I believe it's very difficult to achieve green energy marketplace and this transformation if you don't push strongly electrification as a trend.
Right.
Yes, of course, you can provide even some fossil fuels or new generation of hydrocarbons as a fuel, like hydrogen and all the big technological step up, I would say, that now we are mainly still piloting and testing in terms of efficiency, reliability, availability, and similar things. What is really important that if you really want to make a proper green transition, you need to electrify as much as possible.
Right.
Okay. And being able to manufacture the most critical components that are helping this electrification in terms of core infrastructure, I believe is a huge strong point for KONČAR in terms of this green transition. And this is something that we used a lot in Europe, because as you are aware, the energy mix in Europe is a little bit different than in US. But at the same time, strong trends in data center business with all this AI growth that is happening, but also other applications that can help to stabilize the grid, like battery storages, for example,
right,
is pushing electrification, even if you are using the source of energy manufactured or produced from the fossil fuels. Okay, you still need to build the grid, you still need to reinforce the infrastructure to provide at the end electrical energy, which is the most efficient way to run those applications properly. So even it seems that maybe we have a different energy mix in US versus what we see in Europe, at the end, electrification is becoming the same challenge that both continents have. And being able to provide certain solutions, which is not only traditional equipment like transformers or switchgear or overhead transmission lines with towers and everything else, but it's also how to make those applications and this infrastructure much more flexible, much more efficient by putting a digital layer on top of it. And we specialized exactly in providing this kind of more complex solutions, not only pure components and products, but moving our solution towards complex solution with digital part, with predictive and preventive maintenance, with the ability to run the equipment in different modes of operations that today we are facing in those specific applications. So as you said, bidirectional approach with energy flows is something totally different that it was some time ago. And if you want to make sure that you have the most efficient and optimized operations of the infrastructure, you need to put a digital layer on top of it. And this is where we have some interesting solutions to provide.
With that said, and you've done this all the way through, but now package it all up for me. Last question is, talk a little bit about KONČAR Group. You've talked about the engineering, you've talked about manufacturing. If you just give what we call the elevator speech for a KONČAR Group, because you're not a name that is well known in the United States, but you have a pedigree that should be well known. Hopefully we are going to help make it known, but give us your, as we call it, the elevator speech about who KONČAR Group is.
So look, as I said, KONČAR Group is an engineering company with a lot of manufacturing capabilities. So having ability to provide very complex solutions like hydropower plants, big solar power plants, all the digital layer on top of it, being able to provide a very strong and complex projects on the substations, even for 765 kV, which is something that is becoming more and more important for US to reinforce it, to build it properly. But also to push not only ability to build the critical infrastructure, but also ability to protect this critical infrastructure and run it in the most optimized way. And when I'm saying that, this is becoming a big challenge. You know, the geopolitical situation is far from being a normal one or not being a challenging one, okay? And today with different kind of threats that are actually becoming our everyday life. And it's all around the world, quite similar risk of having different kind of threats. We are investing a lot in cybersecurity and even in the technical protection of the most critical infrastructure that any country has. Having a long-term experience, more than 50 years, building of different control centers for distribution, for transmission systems, for different application like SCADA, like integrating ADMS systems all around the world, we built quite strong capabilities to really become a recognized expert in this protection of the critical infrastructure as well. And now we see also very interesting market potential to provide such solutions. So we are extremely looking forward to open different discussions with our future customers in US.
Well, I will end this by saying, welcome to America. The demand and the problems are there. You've got the solutions to approach them, but welcome to America. Thank you for doing this, Ivan, and I hope to do another one with you soon.
Thanks a lot, Alan, for very interesting discussion, and I'm really looking forward to have a face-to-face as well very soon.